Hi there everyone. I apparently forgot to turn my mic on this video. So once again I'm using the voiceover for this video. Today I am using Arteza canvas panels, a 14 pack. They are 12 by 12 inch panels and I am using the 60 count Arteza premium acrylics, which I absolutely love. And that's what is set up here on the table. This is a pour that it was a challenge made by one of my subscribers that's in the Facebook group that is on my Facebook page. I have my own Facebook group there. And this was the challenge. She wanted to do a red, yellow, blue challenge using white or black as an option and using silicone as an option, and I chose to use OGX. So this is what my setup is on the table. I've got everything ready to go. She had mentioned an 8 by 10 and I didn't have any 8 by 10, so I'm using the next closest thing I have, which is the 12 by 12 canvas panel. I am also an Arteza affiliate. I get a very small percentage of any sales. So if you're interested in these products, you can click on the link below my video, and it's my Arteza link, and it'll take you straight over to their website. And make sure to use the coupon code Sandra Lett 1 when you check out, and you'll get 10% off. That might at least cover part of your shipping or something like that. So I had already removed the plastic from the canvas panels, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like without the plastic, the two pieces that came on either end of the canvas boards. I was pleasantly surprised that these canvas boards did not warp while I did this pour, and I also did not use excessive amounts of paint. I did use quite a bit of paint, but not enough to make the boards warp, which was a pleasant surprise. So instead of using push pins on the bottom of the canvas, I'm going to just use the little bathroom cups that are to my left there to prop it up on top of. And I'm just showing you the Arteza 60 piece color set and the paints that I have chosen. So in the first cup I have a mixture, pretty much about half and half, of mid yellow and lemon yellow. In the blue cup I used mostly cerulean blue with some ultramarine blue and Prussian blue. The final cup is carmine red. And I have taken Floetrol Easy Flow, which is a European version of our Floetrol in America. And Floetrol has been very gracious to send me free product to demo for you. And this is especially important for those of you that do not live in the United States, that cannot get Floetrol. And Floetrol is a very comparable option for you. Great quality, very self-leveling, very smooth, less fluggers, and it almost has a very slight sheen to it when it dries. So I have mixed 1 part paint, 1 part Floetrol. and I'm just stirring these up here real quick. It mixes up, Arteza mixes up very quickly compared to a lot of other tube paints. It does not take a ton of stirring to get these paints mixed together. I had kind of squirted the blue all over the inside of the cup. It kind of went haywire on me, so I'm just trying to make sure to scrape all my edges. And that's important with any of your paints, is to scrape around the edges of the cup to make sure that you get all that extra paint mixed in with your Oetrol. And I'm a little short on the Oetrol in this cup. For some reason I didn't pour quite enough, so I'm adding a little bit more there just to get it closer to the amount of paint that I have in the other 2 cups. But as you can see, the paint mixes up fairly quickly. And the water that I'm going to be using is in the red bottle there. And in my water bottle I put 90% water and 10% Oetrol, or if you're using Floetrol, use 10% Floetrol. That makes it look a little bit white and milky when it comes out of the bottle, but what it does is it helps mix into your paint and Oetrol mixture a little bit better. It just allows for better mixing. It doesn't take quite as long to get it all mixed together. It's just a quicker process. I also have my black, a little bit left in a cup from a previous pour that is also 50-50 with Oetrol, and some water added, and there is no silicone or OGX. You want your consistency. I'm going to add just a hair bit more water on that one. You want your consistency to be creamy thick, but not thick enough to where it doesn't drip off your stick, and not wet enough to where it drips off like water. So you want it to come down in a steady stream where it comes off that stick in one continual stream of paint. No dripping and no blobs. So very quickly I'm just adding water to my other colors. And like I said with Arteza, it doesn't take long to get your paint colors mixed up compared to say Artist Loft or Liquitex Basic tube paints, which take a little bit longer. They're a little bit on the thicker side and take longer to mix up. But I do like the quality of Arteza. It's creamy and rich and thick, and it stays vibrant. And a little paint goes a long way. So I'm doing the final stirring up and mixing of the yellow paint here. It's better to go in small squirts of water as opposed to putting just way too much in at the beginning. That's why I use a bottle instead of pouring it out of a cup, because you have a little bit more control. You can always add more water to it, but you can't take it out once it's in there. And I also have white mixed 1-to-1 with Oetrol with some water added, and no silicone in that one either. This is my OGX that I'm going to add one tiny drop to, not one pump. I am not pushing that pump down all the way. I'm just barely squeezing it, That allows just one tiny drop to fall out of that pump. That goes for 3-ounce cups of paint, 8-ounce cups of paint. You only need 1 drop of OGX per color. With silicone I add a drop per ounce of paint, but with OGX I use 1 drop per cup. So I'm going to do a dirty pour. That was in the challenge. And you could use white or black, that was optional. And I've decided on this first one that I'm going to use both. Whatever goes in first will come out last. So I've decided I'm going to try starting out with black, which my black is a little bit on the thick side. On my yellow cup there, I had poured some resin on a previous day and there was some resin stuck to that cup. If you see that little lip on my cup, that's what it is. In the yellow, it's resin stuck to the cup. I use my little cups as risers sometimes to hold canvases up off a countertop or something like that. So I often reuse my cups for different reasons. So a dirty pour is called a dirty pour because you are pouring colors together into a cup, which makes it then what you would call dirty. If you were just pouring yellow, then it's a clean yellow, or if you just pour red, it's clean. But when you put it in a cup and you mix it in with other colors, then it becomes what we call in the acrylic pouring world dirty. So this is called a dirty pour when you mix your colors together inside of a cup. And I had just put clean butcher paper down earlier before this video, so I'm just trying to make sure that I keep everything on a clean note, at least for a little while, because my table always ends up being super messy. And I decided to end it with a little bit of black too, just for the fun of it. You kind of never know how much your black will take over a painting. And I've decided to lay down a very thin coat of the white, and I'm just going to use my hands, my gloved hands, to spread that white mixture around. I'm just wanting a wet surface. It doesn't have to lay down perfectly. You don't have to have it smooth and flat or anything, because I'm going to flip that cup over and it's going to totally cover the canvas, so it does not have to be perfect. You're just starting your canvas with a wet surface, basically. You can just flip your cup over, but I'm known to kind of throw paint a little bit, so it's safer if you put your canvas panel or canvas on top of the cup and flip it that way. You have a little bit more control. And sometimes when your cup is sitting there upside down, it takes a while for the paint to trickle down from the bottom of the cup. So I take a push pin and I poke a hole or two in the top of that, or the bottom of that cup, and that releases the air pressure and the suction, and it allows the paint to flow from the bottom of the cup down a lot better. Also, if you notice, I do not take my cup and go back across over the paint that I have just poured out of the cup, because then it'll leave that ribbon of color, which I don't like to have the ribbon of color over the top of my fresh pour. I like for what happens that comes out of the cup to be able to freely happen without a ribbon of color going across it. That's just my personal preference. And what I'm doing here is I'm just giving it a few minutes for the OGX to grow. The OGX is going to pretty much cause your cells to pop up immediately. You can hit it with the heat gun, and what happens here is usually it doesn't help your OGX cells grow any quicker, but what it does is it brings out these tiny little dots, which are not usually my preference. One other thing you can do is blow just with your breath, and that will release a lot of little air bubbles that happen when you flip your paint. So you don't even have to use a heat gun or a torch to release those air bubbles. You can blow on it. Of course, it's a smaller canvas. If you have a large canvas, you would probably hyperventilate, right? I'm trying really hard to tilt this without making it spill all over my clean table. That can be challenging at times. It's also challenging to hold a canvas panel because you do not have the 3/4 of an inch ledge that you would with a canvas, or a 1.5 inch ledge if you're doing a deep gallery wrapped canvas. You don't have those edges to hold on to with your fingers, so you're having to balance it on your hands and trying to keep your fingers out of the paint along the edges of a canvas panel. So that is one disadvantage of using a canvas panel, is not having an edge to hold on to. And as you notice, I take my fingers and I kind of roll the paint over the edges. I'm just kind of trying to direct that paint to flow over, but if you roll it, it will kind of help take that design pattern. If there's a cell, it will help move that cell pattern a little bit easier by just rolling it with your finger or with a palette knife, something like that. It just helps the design flow over your edge a little bit more lovely than if you just smear it over. And what's happening here too is I had some really large cells, but because the paint is on the thicker side and it's taken me a while to stretch that paint across the canvas panel in all directions, that's what kind of gives these jagged shapes that people often get, is because your paint is a little on the thicker side and you're taking so long to stretch those cells that it does give it kind of a jagged look. So I'm trying to get the paint to go back to the original corner to unstretch some of the cells, but that doesn't work very well. Once you've stretched those cells and kind of given them that funky shape, it's kind of hard to get rid of that shape. You can't get it to look back to a round and juicy plump cell. And there was an area there I didn't care for, and on this corner I'm just trying to add in a little paint, which also has some of the black in it too, which surprisingly did not show up much in this painting. It does deepen your colors a little bit to incorporate black into your dirty cup or dirty pour. So I was trying to just incorporate a little bit more of that darker color in the very corners, and that was especially where my fingers had touched the edges of the canvas panel and it had muddied up a little bit, so I tried to pour a little bit of the leftovers from my cup onto it. So I enjoyed doing that one so much that I've decided I'm going to do another one. And I'm going to leave the black out this time and just use red, yellow, and blue and white. So I shifted my painting over to the left side and I decided I'm adding just a touch more water to my paints because they were thick and it was taking them a little while to move across my panel. So I'm giving them just a slight stir because you don't want to stir that OGX up too much to where you lose the possibility of having larger cells. So like I said, I'm skipping the black and I'm going to do another dirty pour and basically just use up my colors. This time I'm not even going to put the white base coat on, and my cup also already has the holes because I'm using the same cup I used before. I've already punched the holes in from the first pour, so there's not going to be that suction that I had with the first one. And I'm not putting white down on the canvas because I have more paint in this cup than I did in the previous cup. And I added water to my paints to make them a little bit more fluid this time. And already you can see that the colors are a little bit brighter because there is no black in this pour. So while I'm waiting on my OGX to do its magic, I'm just kind of straightening up my table, putting some of the white paint back into my bigger cup of white paint. Covering up my black paint. Allowing my OGX to have time for it to make the cells on its own without any help. And I have decided I am not using the heat gun this time to blow on it. I'm just going to do a little bit of my own blowing to pop the few little bubbles that I saw and just to leave it at that and not use the heat gun because I don't want the specks that the heat gun causes. And then I'm grabbing 4 of the little bathroom cups that I will use to hold up my canvas panel off of the table because you can't put push pins in the bottom of a canvas panel. Just blowing one more time. But you've seen those OGX cells grow just in the few minutes that I have been explaining to you what is going on. They grow all by themselves, and that's why I tell people OGX is the way to go. If you can't get cells, you always will get cells with OGX, but the key is to put one tiny drop and not use a pump. If you put too much OGX in, it works to your disadvantage. The advantage with OGX is it takes very little OGX to make large cells. And I've had my bottle of OGX for over 6 months, and I still have half a bottle left. And people say, is there a particular OGX? I say yes. The one I use is the anti-breakage hair serum. But if you can find another OGX product, look on the ingredients label, and if dimethicone is the first or second ingredient, then it is probably going to work for you. That is the magical ingredient, is dimethicone, which is in personal lubrication products. That is what causes the big, beautiful cells. And here I am just scraping out the final parts of my cup to use the paint up, and then that helps me not have to worry about spreading my paint as much to the edges, hoping to salvage some of these big cells that are on my canvas right now. The great thing about little paper bathroom cups is you can take them and you can crunch them up and squeeze them and get almost every drop out of them by doing it that way. And I laid my cup down with something propped under it to let the paint drift down the cup so that I can maybe use that for something at the end of the video to get some extra acrylic skin paint poured. I try to use every bit of my paint that I can. I'm trying to be a little bit slower and more deliberate with my tilting to try to keep the larger cells. But as you will see, I kind of do the same thing I did on the first one. I lose some of that big cell structure, not all of it, but some of it because of stretching them out. When you stretch them out to a certain point, then you move it in a different direction, it will squeeze those cells and make them look more jaggedy. And as you can see, the yellow and blue mix pretty easily together in these pores to make the green color, because blue and yellow make green, blue and red make purple, and then red and yellow make orange. I didn't have any orange show up really in much of any of this experiment on these two canvas panels. And you might could say that there was some purple, really dark purple, maybe in the first one because of the black being added. It made some areas look like a deep purple because of the red and blue together, but it might have been too because the black was involved, which darkens up the colors as well. But some of the areas that are darkest in this pour, because I don't have any black in it, the darkest areas would be the red and blue together, so it would have caused a little bit of a purple to mix together. So if your paint is taking a little too long to get to a corner, I take my finger and I move it around. The paint will then flow over it just a little bit better. But like I said, if you're going to continue a pattern, Make sure to roll your finger over the edge of your surface so that if you have a cell pattern going on, it will continue that cell pattern over the edge of the canvas or canvas panel. But as you see here, I see how I am stretching it, and some of those big round cells are becoming more jaggedy, kind of what I would describe as like ghost shapes. They look like ghost shapes to me, is the best way to describe it. But I do have larger cell shapes in this canvas panel than I did in the first one. The yellow became a little bit more vivid in this one too, because probably no black being involved. And I added a little bit more white to this canvas, I do believe. So I decided, again to do one with the white only, as opposed to my first pour, which was done with the black in addition to it. So you can see the difference. Pretty much the same process, just black is in the first one and black and white, well, black and white is in the first one and only white is in the second one. So it's very important with canvas panels that if you're propping them on cups or whatever you're propping them on, that those cups are closest to the edges of the corners as possible to keep your canvas panel as level as possible. Because the thing with canvas panels is sometimes they want to warp, so this keeps it from warping inward sometimes. And I poured what was left in that cup that was laying on the side. I poured it onto an extra piece that I had torn off of butcher paper. And I'm taking another piece of butcher paper and just smashing it on there. This is what you call a dip. And as you can see, there was a lot of white left in that part of the cup. That was the white that was at the very beginning of the cup. So that's why the colors are pale looking, is because the white was at the very bottom of the cup, and that's what showed up in the edge, or the remnants of what was left in that cup that I had tilted on the side while I was doing the pours. And I'm just using the heat gun here to just pull out any final cells. Putting those aside to dry. And here I've come down, I've taken the camera. The black only showed up in that corner for the most part, and in that corner just a little bit. But as you see, the blue and yellow combined to create a good amount of green there. You don't see orange from the red and yellow. You do see a little bit of a violet color, and that is the blue and red with a little white mixed in. So here the colors are probably truer in this second pour without the black being in it. You get more of the clear yellow, red, and blue, but you do have some of that green, and you have little tiny hints of orange. And you don't see much of the purple either, or violet color. You get a little hint of violet down there in the bottom right corner. And violet is from blue and red combining, and it probably had a little bit of white to make it more vivid. So there is the experiment, the red, yellow, blue experiment. That has black and white, that has white. And I did use OGX for my silicone. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Make sure to click on the links below the video where it says show more on your computer, or if you're on your mobile device or iPad, it would be a down arrow, and that gives you all the information about what I did in the video. It gives you all the links that are important, the Amazon recommendations for all the products I use. I have a PayPal link if you'd like to make a one-time donation. I have a Patreon page if you would like to come over and join me there and become a patron and get some added perks and special videos that are just for my patrons there. And the Arteza link with the coupon code of Sandra Lett 1 if you want to go over to Arteza and order anything from Arteza's website. And my personal Facebook group page, which is over 5,000 people at this point, but you can post pictures and comments there and connect on a more personal level with me there as well. This is where the Facebook challenge is, called Red, Yellow, Blue, and it's one of the events on my Facebook group page. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.